The year is 1906. Haishan crossed his hands on his hips, a face of superiority. Obviously, it is already a three-stitch method of urgency. These are a few fools. I actually took advantage of my own young lady. I ate all the food I had ordered. It just doesn't make sense. The crowd scratched their heads. I feel a little embarrassed, but I saw that the major events were clearly described. Pull out the dish that has already been eaten, lifted high in front of Haishan. The path of thought turned out to be the Tibetan scripture pavilion in the realm of dreams. Inside the restaurant at the moment, Haishan was eating the noodles in Gao Haoguang's bowl, while talking about the thinking path that a few people have just experienced. To put it simply, there is the pavilion of dreams, exclusively offered to some, a place where the incompetent seeker consciousness learns. And at that time, the glass ball they saw in the room, it is the entrance to the Silk Road. It is called 100 Flowers and Silk Shadow Beads. Just use your mana around it to be able to attract it. After that, the user will feel their consciousness withdrawn, and then into the bead of privacy. Through this thing, people can then go to a great god with a number of gods, the non-real created by the passers, the realm of non-reality. It is also known as the 103 road to see by the world. It corresponds to the 103 jurisprudence in the Genshin. There are also 103 of them. White law privacy beads scattered all over the place. And this is the end of all the Silk Road. It is the magnificent pavilion in the center. This is for most of the seekers who are not very good at it. It can be regarded as a big chance, because this place has endless years. The number of souls that remained. That is the essence of the magic hidden within the Buddha treasure. Here, of course, Dharma seekers can also see themselves. The magic weapon of possession, or the essence of magic hidden in one's own body. Everyone was shocked by the array of dazzling sights in front of them. The moment of imprisonment seemed a little overwhelming, and fell behind the crowd in the 1000-base pavilion too. But he doesn't seem to care about any of that. Their sight always stay on the seekers who have come here recently. The other side, Gao Haoguang stared at the vertical soul of a talisman, forgot for a long time. Otherwise, he seemed to remember something. His gaze swept around the heavy task. After discovering that no one is paying attention here, reach out and fumble in your fanny pack behind your back. Later, he took out the Japanese style and scroll of the name. He wanted to see if he could see it in this place. Contents of the document. However, at the same time that Gao Haoguang was seriously looking at the Japanese style, several eyes from the crowd locked on him. It was the one who had been depicted on his face before, the man of the strange mark. Jom passed half an hour. A terrifying sharpness came. The consciousness of the crowd also left the space. As for why consciousness leads to physical body after leaving the body, exhaustion. This is mainly due to the lack of their own supernatural powers. What's more, it will lead to the loss of their own vitality. The situation of the reduction of young longevity. Everyone listened to the explanation of the sea and the mountain. One side walked out of the town of Twin Floors. Didn't pay attention at all. At this moment, they have been targeted by people with hearts. And even more than one wave. The second daughter of the 1000 Machine Pavilion, who fell at the end, communicating information with supernatural powers. They are after entering the path of the division. He has been patrolling the crowd with the reverse law. Ultimately, only on the man with the mark of Gao Haoguangyu, found that there is a light surrounding. This is an order that the owner of the 1000-base pavilion has ordered many times. If you see it, you must erase it. So after coming out of the Silk Road, Subtlety and Tiger Rope Mutiny are divided into two ways, each stalking a team of people. Decided to go to the middle of nowhere, start with the Four Seasons. But I never expected it. Followed by a group of people and got together again. So they decided to sneak up on them from behind. A fierce man and a woman who are ready to sneak attack Gao Haoguang. The fierce man is waiting for the opportunity to move. The second daughter of the relocation tube followed closely behind. For the sudden appearance of a fierce face. Everyone in the three-needle method was shocked. Only the eyes of the sea and the mountains are always calm. There was no intention of making a move at all. It's hard to see this, and he smiles. He is in the path of thought. Saw the great supernatural treasure in Gao Haoguang's hands. Count the souls. Lost in his mind. He is ready to kill people and put out fires. I didn't expect the praying mantis to catch cicadas and yellow finches. The latter few just jumped up. Was the second daughter of Qianji, who did not speak of martial arts. Kicked out of the way. And even in battle, these two goods are also maintained at all times. That textbook agreement smiles. Kicked away the fierce face at the same time. They turned their gaze to Gao Haoguang. The exaggerated strange laugh said twice, "Don't even think about running away. After passing through me, the master and apprentice will definitely do the right thing for heaven." This was at the time. Penglai Immortal Dao, one of the strongest sects. A duel with 1,000 machine managers. It turns out, the more out-of-tune people on weekdays. The combat power is ridiculously strong. In the mountains and forests at this moment. Looking at the two people who suddenly appeared, Gao Haoguang felt a little inexplicable. The former was obviously just coming for the treasure on his body. The latter said that it was for the sake of heaven. Treat yourself to the group with the fierce face. Cowards Ma Zhao and others. Although I can't see the strength of the two daughters in front of me. But since the comers are not good, they are not willing to sit back and wait for the other sea and mountain. As usual, all the sacks. Observe first to see if you want to run away. Those who know him well know. The subtext of this sentence is Diao. But I'm in charge. At the same time as several people confronted each other. The group of people with fierce faces who were kicked away. Get up angrily. Glared angrily at the two yellow dogs in front of him who didn't speak of martial arts. However, the tiger god, this tiger girl, doesn't talk much. Directly took out a few Fulu number methods. Spread out and condense in hand. The sea and the mountains looked at the difference twice. He already saw it. This woman is a prodigy of 1,000 kigwans. The three of them saw this. Not to be outdone. They all ran their supernatural powers and went to the west of the ancient gods. And at the same time that several people were fighting. The subtle gaze has been locked on the three-needle method. The group is actually locked in the seamount. He could feel the little captive of the woman. On the contrary, Haishan realized that this woman was very strong. And the other side, facing the ferocity that is coming. Even a few people. The martial god did not use the number condensed in the palm of his hand. Instead, a few puppets were summoned. Under its control, the puppet broke through the air. Entanglement with several people. The technique used by the woman in front of her. Ma Zhao felt excited. Blindly asked Haishan to know the origin of the woman. Haishan turned his head and forgot to look at everyone. The tone was flat, indicating that this was the doorman of Qianjiguan. Ma Zhao was shocked in his heart. Qianjiguan is one of the top powerhouses in the matter. Meanwhile, the battle between the five gods and the fierce face. It's already getting hot. Looking at the two puppets that had been outflanked. Loose face, eyes flashed. Something was wrong. There should be three of them. But apparently he found out a little late. The disappearing puppet. I don't know when it has come to the head of several people. 3 boulders were thrown down. Hit their skulls with precision. A few people only felt that it was dark in front of them. And then there was no then. Wu Dashan smiled evilly. Walked in front of the unconscious ferociousness. Wiped the jack in your hand with a raw mark. Covered his forehead. As a mouthful of blood spurted out of the man. His path as a seeker was thus cut off. Seeing this, the martial god looked disgusted. I can't help but complain about the cruelty of my sect's supernatural powers. For a while, I forgot about expression management. Until the subtle gaze glanced at him. The martial arts god rang out violently. Immediately pretended to be fierce again. Master and apprentice. With an evil smile on his face, he surrounded the three-needle method and his group. Delicately motioned to the great god of martial arts to deal with Ma Zhao and the others. The women's kid is strong. He's going to do it himself. For this affirmation from the opponent. Let the sea and mountains Liao be a little fluttery. But that's exactly what he wants. Instructed Ma Zhao and the others behind him. You deal with the little one. The big one is handed over to Haishan Liao. With that, he took off the cloth on his back, walked in front of the golden temple. Qin Shangdao, let me see. The means of the 1,000-base pavilion. A word for the boy in front of him. The golden temple was not surprised. And it means that your qualifications are also good. Can you do it for a while? No, they still owe me something. Haishan replied coldly. Case. Neither side said anything more. This is Penglai Sandao and 1,000 wives. The pinnacle of the battle between the literati. Lying in the smoke and dust at the same time. The two have already dodged out tens of meters. During the period, there were no less than 100 trillions. After the paperwork application, subtlety and decisiveness. Draw an arc in front of you with a direct throw of the arrow. The sea and mountain birds hang and hang. Dodge at the same time. Twist the flower in your hand to fight back. Under high-speed rotation, the flowers spread out instantly. But he was dodged by the subtle one who retreated. However, it was this moment that Haishan Liao was waiting for. A few Fu Lu threw out. Use the flower to hide your motivation to cast spells. The next moment, Fu Lu transformed into several fingers. The subtlety of the instantaneous attack on nowhere to borrow. Forced into desperation. Subtlety can only stabilize the body first. Swing your sword to break through the oncoming restraints. Merely. All this is still in the calculation of the sea and the mountain. Calling the flower a sword is approaching instantly. In an instant, the sword light was everywhere. The aftermath of the battle between the two causes everything in the vicinity to be shattered. There is a mental calculation and an unintentional understatement. The Golden Temple suffered a dark loss, but fortunately, its own strength is strong. The two fought all the way from the Baichao Garden to the Three Books. Fight from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. Everywhere you go, it's full of devastation. Bang! The walls of the temple were shattered. The sea and the mountains turned over and jumped up at the same time. And with the scale in his hand, the flowers blocked the splashing rubble. Then borrow strength with a stomp. Stand on top of the head of the Buddha statue. The Tao is not a Buddha. He didn't see any difference in that. But for the damage caused by both. Haishan Liao was a little reluctant to go. So he calmly looked at the subtlety below him. Whispered, if we were overly subtle. Chuckle. Then it will be a little more restrained. After all, it is to see his life. Throw out 2 huge ingots. Demolish the monk's temple first. Before leaving incense. Good donor. You know how strong this women's kid in front of you is. His magical powers can make everything freeze. Inside the temple at the moment. With the subtlety of dropping the 2 ingots. Each wealthy duo is fighting again. And compared to the rapid changes on the battlefield here, the battle between the 1,000-base tube and the 3 true methods, it appears to be pure blood. Face the puppet cast by the tiger god. A few people could only barely resist. Fighting and retreating, covering Gao Haoguang's escape. Seeing that the gray-haired boy was about to go away, the 5 gods were suddenly anxious. Even the expression on his face was almost unbearable. On the other side, the wolf was escaped by Gao Haoguang, is also full of anger and helplessness. These 2 tiger girls are not only inexplicable, and it's ridiculously strong. Just thinking about the void that suddenly happened to him. Out of thin air, an imprint of a 3-stitch method appeared, followed by, will Akiko's smile like a big flower. It was before his eyes that he appeared. And on another point in this same month, the same few people will see the master open the treasure of the master. They all came to the mirror curiously. I want to meet this little slave more than 1,000 years later. But alas, they can't see anything. The good mood of the General Mingzi sword is here. Take out the pin. I want to turn this little apprentice into a grandson and show it. He also said that he was guaranteed to be exactly as he saw with his own eyes. With the pen and ink of Xianjun. This is how a masterpiece was born. That little cock tongue is the finishing touch. Make this masterpiece. In an instant, there was a hint of stupidity that was about to come out. Jiang Tong and the others were silent after reading it. Honest people should. Xinghua even commented with a good face. Looks rather stupid. A face that my junior true method is about to end. It's so worrying. Gao Haoguang was depressed. But there is no time to refute it at the moment. Some resentfully said that it would be seen when. If you don't help, I'll really destroy the door for you. Zhang Mingzi wanted to fight again. However, his gaze swept over Gao Haoguang's hands and captured him. Sure was a shield. Chen Sheng opened his mouth and said, Xiaohuazai, you don't need this immortal yet. To the point of shooting. Because he found. At this moment, it is in the hands of this little apprentice. The magazine that hinders the operation of the magic soul's mana. It's gone. So it seems. That surging little shell. It really helped the little hair. Meantime, the battle between the Golden Temple and the sea and mountain continued. The two of them hit Bai Chao from the 3-bit bookstore. Xian and Xian dodged the sword of the Golden Temple. An umbrella hangs in the treetops. Place of the hornet's nest. Then he fell straight down. I want to slap this object on the face of the Golden Temple. However, it was precisely this move. But it almost made Haishan completely fall into passivity. The Golden Temple dodged sideways at the same time. A dodge. Circuitous. I appeared on the side of the seamount unexpectedly. Seamount birds underestimate delicate parents. It can only be forcibly twisted into an empty body. And weigh the flower in front of him. I ate it solidly. Brilliant writes opinions. Tremendous force. Let his body fly out uncontrollably. How could you miss this opportunity? Shelter again approaching. Meanwhile, the hornet's nest that was thrown out also landed at this moment. The battle between the strong is in turmoil. As long as you grasp the slightest flaw, you can decide life and death. For a while, the sea and the mountains fell into absolute backs. Under the sword death of the subtlety like a storm. The iron in his hand was hard to resist, pierced by a piece of freezing. Just when it was about to be completely cut off, the sea and the mountains violently destroyed the flowers in their hands. Caught off guard, the standing sword of the Golden Temple, formed by captives, was forcibly seized. You know how strong Peng Lai's natal method is. He is able to make all things clear. At this moment, the mountains and forests are full of swords. Under the subtle storm of attack, the sea and the mountains fell into passivity in an instant. Even the weighing flower in his hand is about to be cut off. This sword is dangerous. But Haishan did not panic at all. With a flick of his hand, he snatched the sword that was pierced on the weighing flower. But even so, the Golden Temple still did not stop the pace of the attack. Under his control, the sword that had been taken from him was turned into a captive again, condensed on top of his hands. This is the secretary of the Senki Pavilion, the Thousand Strikes Golden Iron Hand. At this moment, the delicate fists are as if they have been poured with gold. A set of fists and martial arts are impenetrable. The swift breaking of the void set off a burst of pounds. In this regard, Haishan Liao could only wave the one in his hand. Broken iron called flowers. Barely hard. But this magic weapon is too terrifying. Not at all. Inflict the slightest damage on the subtlety covered by the robes. It was even held in his hands. Without the slightest hesitation. A subtle step. Forcing the sea and mountains into a corner. At the same time, his left hand clenched into a fist and smashed towards him. At this moment, the seamount is unavoidable. I have no choice but to use this episode of blunt guy subtlety. The life of a mountain is like a mountain of cohesion. The wall behind the seamount material shattered almost instantly. There is no defense. His body flew out uncontrollably. A touch of blood red came out of the mouth of Haishan Liao. Seeing this, he sneered and followed up. A battlefield for both. It was transferred from the Baichao Garden to the Arch Bridge. At the same time, the smoke and dust were rising. Will also be the Tiger God. The battle with Ma Zhao and the others was disrupted. There was a brief lull in the field. A dark loss of Sea and Mountain Liao. I miss it at the moment. His own immortal flower. I just don't know where to fool around by the legal uniform. But now is clearly not the time to think about that. I want to deal with this woman with 1,000 machine tubes. You have to use some of Peng Lai's real means. With the Sea and Mountains, Liao led the law in his hands. A haughty mana field. Wrap the two in it. This stance only lasts for 1 second. But for the subtlety that is deep in it. But it's 3 seconds. This is Peng Lai's natal method. Can affect the flow of time for oneself or others. The body of the devoted. Everything including thinking and things like that slows down. Looking at the oncoming sea and mountain beams. Subtle press of trouble. But the next moment, his figure began to blur. Dodge the blow. Haishan Liao's eyes showed shock. This woman's toughness was a bit beyond his expectations. Marvelous sneer. He cultivates underwater at a depth of 100 meters all year round. So just by the captives. The spiritual essence of all things. It can only be regarded as a minor trouble for him. And he hasn't started yet. Use your true means. And yet at this moment, the tiger god behind him stopped him with words. Incomprehensible looking back. But saw his precious apprentice. Said wisely. Surrender. The scene fell silent for a moment. Don't say subtle. Even if it is a group of people from the Three Truths method. It's all a mistake. It turns out that at the moment behind the tiger god, a warp sword formed by magic. Right in the back of his heart. The girl who was afraid of pain immediately spoke. Persuade his master to surrender. And even began to think cranky. Maybe the owner of this sword will threaten you. I stripped naked and did something shameful with him. Shocked with a strange look. The sea and the mountain means that if you talk about this, then I'm not sleepy. In the beginning of all this, the brave Gao Haoguang. But it's a depressed face. Why do you come into contact with people? All of them are so outrageous. Gao Haoguang said. Can you please stop this mess? Nonsense. I'm only 12 years old. It is called the Tao by the people of later generations. Gao Haoguang of the Extreme Law Demon Lord. It was also the person who was chosen by the true blood of Wanya. On the stone bridge at the moment. Because Gao Haoguang uses spells. For the sake of restraining the tiger god. The fighting between the two sides finally subsided. Seeing this, Ma Zhao and the others were very excited. It's not because of the happiness of the rest of my life. It's that his 3 disciples can finally use the spell. And so it is. Guidance in passing through the seamount for a recent time. Plus after a trip to the Silk Road. Gao Haoguang's understanding of the tree soul became clearer. It's not like borrowing other people's eyes like before. Sigh at the clarity of others' blessings. Blocking or the object itself is just a mundane carrier. The seeker is just a vehicle for borrowing these. To apply the law. This power. Patterns that can produce all kinds of miracles. After completion, it becomes a number of souls. The more refined the mana. The more precise the engraved pattern is. The more powerful the miracle is produced. After a preliminary understanding of the essence of some spells, Gao Haoguang can finally rely on himself. Fixed some of the former within the captive. A magazine that obstructs the flow of spells. And it's in the seamount. The moment when Peng Lai's natal spell was cast. Gao Haoguang has already set his sights on the subtlety. Ant Tiger behind her. As the hearts of the crowd were attracted by the battle in the field. Gao Haoguang jumped into the air. However, his target is not Ant Tiger herself. With his current strength, there is no doubt that he will be promoted in vain. So he stared at the air. The ripple behind the puppet. This is what the tiger god uses to control the puppet. And the formation of a special space. When Ma Zhao fought with the tiger god, he noticed. The popularization of the flying sword slashes the thoughts of the puppets continuously. But the mana when the flying sword is gone. But there were a few ripples that passed through that place. Appeared in the tiger god's side. Judged by high light consumption, the two spaces are internally connected. and outsiders can also borrow one or two. The next moment, a piece of fulu. Suddenly, Lieni flew out from Ant Tiger's hand. Don't take him to react yet. Transformed into a flying sword against his backstar hammer. The girl's demise suddenly panicked. With tears in his eyes, he took a picture of his origins. The little girl Qinji Guan, whose aunt. Minor divine power degree. Aged 16. Loves furry animals. The creed of life is shameful to swear to surrender. But living can be shameful. So life is more important. The subtlety on the side also began to stand out in its entirety. People are thousands of machine tubes. Zhong Shintong degree. Once married to a mortal. Later, I thought it was better to be single and divorced. Hobby is the Tiger Raising Award. Finally said in the high. Vast. The light and the fierce face found a light haunted by one. Although they don't know what it is. But the owner of the Qinji Guan Pavilion has told him many times. This is an ominous symbol. This kind of person must use thousands. The base wipe is prepared for erasure. Although the name of the calligraphy is so murderous. But in fact, it is only hitting the target. Leave one with only a Kalogi tube. To see the mark. Not at all to the narrator. Deals fatal damage. After the two explained. Haishan Liao also pouted and said. In fact, Qinji Pavilion is well known in Wuhan in the circle. That's why there is always a person who doesn't want to be vicious. Gao Haoguang was speechless and wanted to ask about that light. But I didn't find it. At this moment, he is in the same month order of the three chastities behind him. Akiko's face was gloomy and terrifying. In the first palace of the year 525 A.D. Shinju looked at the same month and made Shang look down on the Thousand Machines Pavilion. And those 4 deer were ominous. A light-haunted soul. Huizai, Huizai. You were also targeted by Wanya Zhenshue. As his voice fell, the same few people will feel it from the master. To a trace of cold and piercing killing intent. The year came to 1911. It's been 5 years. Gao Haoguang and the sea. The mountain bird group came to this Shuanglo town again. At this moment, the space in front of Gao Haoguang's body suddenly distorted. A drop of red mini-true blood fell from it. Gao Haoguang looked at all this calmly. Abstinence reaches out and grabs it in his hands. It's probably the saddest zombie I've ever seen. As early as 5 years ago, he was calculated to be a corpse today. Therefore, it was found by the Qinji Guaman people and put it into the mark. 5 years later, just before his death. Gao Haoguang and his entourage came to Shuanglo town again. As the space in front of him twisted away, Manyo true blood descends. Gao Haoguang's expression was solemn, tentatively reaching out to grab it. However, the moment the real blood touched the palm of his hand, there was a ripple in the space. It's as if they're not on the same plane. Penetrate each other, with the last ripples rising. Kazuha's true blood disappeared without a trace. The 2 swords of the sea and mountains behind him opened their mouths. Explain that the writing is very good. Except for the target chosen by it. There is no other being that can be touched. With that, he looked at the man beside him again and spoke. The wooden girl positioned her target. That's right, this is a sentence from the Thousand Base Pavilion. The upper body puppet is named Huanghua. But at this moment, the existence of this puppet is mastered. It seems that he is very uninterested in Haishan chat. The voice was sent back to the deceitful order. It's hard to be ugly like your mother. Why should I listen to your commands? And the strange saying that you call it would peng lai. The little kid must be at your bedtime. Stab you in the back with a burning stick. Gao Guangguang hurriedly turned back and urged to the wood. Where will the fate of the daughter wipe the life seal positioning? Huanghua surprisingly did not refute this. Refreshingly start running the spell. The sea and the mountains can't help but regain this piece of wood also. It's too double standard. On the other side, Wang Fa cast 1,000 gold wipes the life seal. Successfully located the location of the Real snow. Not far from them. And it's already at the top of the target's head. Seeing this, these people immediately walked towards the place where the target was. Fly away. Meanwhile, Somewhere in this two-story town, a group of people with fierce faces. I tell the fun that happened in recent days. But suddenly, I saw a fierce face, and my eyes turned red instantly. A mouthful of blood gushed out. The bald duo on the side organized. This is the Big Brother's emergency repetition. When you think about seeking medical treatment, only to find that the ferocity at the moment is incorruptible. There was no breath left. And at the moment of its death, suddenly a flash of fireworks appeared in the air. The duo are Dharma seekers. Naturally, I recognize this as the true evil of Wanya. I also know that if this thing comes into contact with the corpse, what are the consequences? So he made a decision. Just as the true blood was about to fall, the spell burned the corpse of the ferocious man. Seeing the corpse turn to dust, both breathed a sigh of relief. And yet at this moment, from afar, there were several sounds of breaking through the air. At the same time, an anxious voice came. The quick flash causal certainty has long existed. Even if the corpse is reduced to nothingness, it is useless. But apparently it was too late. At this moment, a thick blood light spread in the courtyard, followed by the corpse that had turned to dust in the fierce face. It began to coalesce again. The bald duo realizes that something is wrong. I just wanted to fly away. But he was turned into a mage's fierce face. Catch up in an instant. Recess became a trip. Blood poured down with a pungent and sticky rain of blood. Gao Haoguang and his party finally arrived. But I saw the fierce face at this moment. There was horror and disbelief in his expression. It seems that he just reacted. He has become a mage. Even just now, he sucked his brother's vitality dry. He kept muttering, "That's a good thing." The whole person looked very uneasy. But suddenly his body began to tremble. The expression on his face also began to distort. Turned his head towards Gao Haoguang and the others. A kind smile was revealed. After tasting human life, the only remaining humanity within him, already overwhelmed by the instinct of nirvana, it was completely reduced to one. A demon dominated by desire. Without the slightest hesitation, the fierce face directly casts his natural powers towards a few people. Gao Haoguang looked at all this calmly. One step out of the swordsman from the affected area with a sword. At the same time, several blessings spread out and lingered around him. And at the moment in a square somewhere in this double-floor town, it was full of people coming and going. They looked intently at the stage. The overflow that is being staged. Zhong Kuei catches ghosts. Suddenly from the center of this two-story town, there was a loud bang. And in the place where this loud noise came from, the body of the fierce face has been beaten and broken. On the verge of dissipation, I finally remembered the person in front of me. It was the kid he met 5 years ago. The year is 1906. In the Thousand Machine Pavilion, the second daughter learned about Ma Zhao and others. Man is the three truths. After the passenger, there was irrepressible shock on his face. There's no time to worry about the heavy responsibilities anymore. Communicate directly to the door through the tantric method. At the same time, inside the thousand machine tubes, Ben is a depressed face of the master of 1,000 machines. After learning about this, a pair of airplanes and fierce force, eager boat vagina, clever as a sprinkler. Want to meet them? Legend has it that the supernatural powers are vast. The first generation owner of the 1,000-base pavilion in the world. It turned out to be the female Dharma body of the name. The year came to 1906. Shinji Pavilion in the Three Truths. The first intersection after a millennium. The contemporary owner of the Cheeky Pavilion. Make use of the subtle hand of the face transmission part. Directly transmitted a wisp of thought to everyone's eyes. This great power to see Ma Zhao and others. Zay propped up the hall owner and ignored it. After casually glancing at everyone, his eyes stayed on Haishan, the ladies in front of me. The pair of heterochromatic twin children are from the main vein of Pang Lai. In this way, it should be the seventh son of Lao Hai. Then he asked Haishan again, whether the body can be sold to him after death. He can pay the price up front now. Haishin was embarrassed. Indicates that after his death, the commander threw the corpse into the sun. The owner of the museum looked regretful. When it comes to life and waste resources, his gaze roughly glanced at the three true methods and his group. Only when he swept over Gao Haoguang, the master of the Qianji Pavilion, looked stunned, staring at the gray-haired boy. Gao Haoguang was stared at and felt a chill down his spine. Unexpectedly, the owner just glanced at them. He prepared to leave. Before leaving, don't forget to remind Subtlety to keep going. For a time on the spot, fell into a tense atmosphere again. There was no chance for the crowd to react. A subtle dodge came to Gao Haoguang's side. Punched the 1,000 caddies in his hand into his body. Air through the same month order. Zhang Mingzi, who witnessed the complete completion, sweated slightly. Senkiken, which represents this era. The main road of the museum is not bad. But Ma Zhao and the others were shocked. I didn't expect this woman to ignore the safety of her disciples. Rashly attacked Gao Haoguang. But I saw that I was behind the tiger god at this moment. The new little Fujin is long gone. It turned out that Hui Tsai had been using a shuriken to load a gun. Annoyed and angry, the tiger god turned around, staring at the little kid viciously. Said, "Grandson, just bluff me." Direct season of the Iron Fist of adults. Smashed into the top of Gao Haoguang's head. Seeing the little apprentice being bullied like this, the three true methods and his party couldn't stand it. Put on a posture and be ready to fight hard. The subtle duo simply ignored it. Turn around and fly off into the distance. Before leaving, the great god of martial arts also turned around and shouted fiercely, "Brat, wait for me. The next time we meet, be sure to hold you." A sea of blood feud. You just wash the backyard and wait. Ma Zhao and the others were messy for a while. This means of 1,000 base tubes. It's a bit shocking. On the way back, Haishin talked about Qinji and Gao Haoguang's body. The second daughter of Imo Shengyi. This is true. It was really just a tracking spell, and he was aware of it. The name is the delicate woman. It should have the ability of natal god to rule its position. Even in Sanchuan, the town met above the mage. If he really reported that he had murderous intentions, there is no need to be so troublesome. Hear it here. Gao Haoguang was suddenly unhappy. It's not that the seamounts say they're weak. It's because he said that the woman was stronger than Zhao Yin. You must know the strength that Zhao Yin showed at that time. It's only 2 or 3% of what he was at his peak. Shine on the bloody body. It's only 5 or 6% at most. Seeing this, Haishin hurriedly appeased the little stubborn donkey. And in the same month, the General Mingzi. At the moment, he looked a little lonely. He remembered the two old people. And at this moment, Hui Tsai is also heading towards the same fate. If before the death of his little apprentice, they have a 3-stitch approach, it is impossible to end the source of Minnie's true blood. Then he could only erase Gao Haoguang with his own hands. Just when Xianjun was full of thoughts, Hui Tsai turned around. A smug look at him. It's like talking about how I just behaved. Xianjun surprisingly didn't hit Hui Tsai. Said SOSO, barely able to see. The two then grimaced at each other. The call ended. And at this moment, somewhere in the aisle of this first Dharma house, Jiang Tong and the others were chatting about what had happened in recent days. Something big enough to change the pattern. Suddenly there was suffering. Remember before, Jiang Tong talked to the master about the 1,000 chicken pavilion. There was a strangeness in his expression. So he asked if he knew the owner of the 1,000 chickens pavilion about this. Jiang Tong did not deny the suffering. He smiled thoughtfully, turned his gaze to the junior brother of Yingxing Kingdom. You should also know the owner of the 1,000 chicken pavilion. Saw Yingxing was old face flushed. Stumbling explained. I once read it in a strange book. As stated in the book, the form of the owner of the 1,000 base pavilion is quite mysterious. It is evident that someone has seen his real body. It only took 40 years for this person to know. It will be a great divine communication. Soon after, he founded the Senji Museum. And then today, 20 years later, I also want to join the supreme management question of the supernatural world. Speaking of which, Xinghua also talked about it. The disciple of the master of the thousand bases pavilion painted in the Book of Naki, although wearing a mask. But just look at the figure and know that she is a character woman. Today, from time to time, he will take it out and appreciate it repeatedly. Jiang Tong's face showed a strange look. Smile and stare at the third emperor, said the master of the Qinji pavilion, recorded in the book. Most of them are made up. Only the supernatural powers are vast. Tired of these words in the world. Is close to the true body of the owner of the thousand bases pavilion. Because that's what the master's daughter is incarnating. Cheeky pavilion. In fact, it is a doppelganger of our three true methods. And it should be. Senior brother, you are a formal master who has repeatedly cultivated sentiments. Let's talk about it. Jiang Tong and the two of them didn't look back. Only Xinghua was left alone in the wind. The dream has woken up, and the reality is so unbearable. The year is 1906. It is also the return of the Thousand Base Pavilion. The contemporary museum owner immediately ordered someone to turn it out. A portrait that has been handed down thousands of years ago. The man on this painting. Actually, it's exactly the same as the gray-haired boy you see today. 15 years of three-needle method ushered in major changes. In the mountains and forests at this moment, a sudden light rain. It added a little trouble to the group's return journey. But fortunately, there are umbrellas on both the sea and the mountain. The crowd curled up under the umbrella and continued to walk forward. It's crowded, but it's warm. Umbrellas are such a good thing. The light rain does not drop much. Tick-tock, but it can spread all over the mountains. Shrouded in clouds of green sand. Gradually, the rain dissipated. The warm sunlight shines through the clouds into the mountains and forests. The group walked unhurriedly. Slowly, Ma Zhao found that he couldn't keep up. But at the moment, this old man with a gray beard. But I couldn't hide the smile in my heart. He looked at the walk with relief. The gray-haired kid in front. Those few hits just now were not bad. His three disciples can finally use the spell. And so it goes. He's a master. I can finally relax. Although it was a choice based on the same month. Only then did he crutch this kid in the door. But Ma Zhao at that time. There is no half of faith. It is possible to hand over a three-truth transmission recognized by the same month's order. Because he really has learned very little. There is not much to give. Thanks to Haoguang's father, he saw too far. If they were really desperate to refuse, he really didn't know what to do. I guess I'll be out of the way. Wait until Haoguang gets started. Ma Zhao often can't sleep with worry. It's not that he has doubts about Haoguang's qualifications. Rather, they worry about their own stupidity. It's going to be a mistake for this kid. I am also afraid of ruining the sustenance of the deceased fellow door. Simply saw his three disciples with his own eyes in Ma Zhao. On your own. Defeated the temple of the year. When he slaughtered the entire mage of the three virginity sect. He knew that his life had taken a turn for the worse. I saw the old man looking at the little junior brother stupidly. Second senior brother. Huang Ergua muttered a few words angrily. This little bastard. You've finally caught up with your brother's pace. But you're still far from it. Even if it is. In case you go beyond it in the future. At least, it's still your brother. Although occasionally carelessly. As the second senior brother, he is. I'm still a little jealous of this little junior brother. Because since the day Gao Haoguang entered, master and sister, even the moon order, the dead thing, had a look forward to him. This is something that Huang Ergua has never felt. But this little bastard, he is also interested in wresting supernatural powers. On the contrary, it made him even more unhappy. He didn't know if this little brother could be revived. Three-needle method. But after the two went through something together, he saw the difference between this little junior brother. I won't retreat because I know it's invincible. But it looks silly. But it has a resolution that is rare for adults. At this point, Huang Ergua knew that he had made an analogy. Fortunately, I can't be a punisher. He also has a family business to inherit. But it doesn't matter where he is in the future. We'll definitely stare at this little junior brother. Don't let down your good second son. In the end, it was the turn of the silly white sweet elder sister. Although he couldn't see the change in Agwong. But it always feels like something is different. I really want to say. It should be that the distance between the few people is getting farther and farther away. And that round little bean dice back then. Now he is also tall and handsome. It's just a little too thin. Go back and shoot a wild boar to make up for Agwong. Thinking of this, the senior sister smiled happily. Unforgettable partings are silent. The master slowly stopped. There is pampering in the eyes. There is expectation and relief. Gao Haoguang shouted back in confusion. How do you go slowly? Keep up. It's getting dark. The master immediately smiled and followed quickly. Maybe there will be times when they can't keep up. But at least not now. They will cherish the time they can spend together. In the next 5 years, the little junior brother is growing up all the time. From frequently turning back to not being able to bear to look back. And then grew up as a teenager without hesitation. He will wear the stars and the moon to clear the fog. But the road ahead does not ask the west and the east. Life is like a train. There will always be people who get off the bus and leave. There are also people who will get on the bus to participate in the second half. They are one step earlier or one step later. The ride time can be long or short. But there's always one of them. Because of their existence, meaning shines. But parting is also a life experience that we can't avoid. He is the deepest pain in life. It is also a healing journey to usher in growth. Only by understanding the meaning of parting, we'll cherish the encounter and reunion even more. And at this moment in Jiang Mingzi's timeline 530 AD, the 27th Battle of Cause and Effect began. No one knows how this big war will end. But what can be met with is, the whole world will be devastated. Immortals are not stained. But this is a fate that no one in the world can escape. Barefoot to the timeline of the Broken Star Chain, 2020 AD. After sensing the presence of the immortal flower for a moment, it has become the supreme sea mountain of Penglai. Once again, I came to this place where the mountains and rivers flow into the sea. It also mobilized the Penglai heritage. Extend the lives of the only surviving sister and brother of Sanjin. The siblings slept at the bottom of the sea for 5 years. Finally awakened in 2025 AD. This is a pair of cut leaks. Cut to the bankrupt, infatuated man and woman. They met on the rooftop. Made an appointment to be together in the next life. Before they die, they want to give each other one last kiss. Tribute to the unswerving love between the two. And yet at this moment, on the rooftop opposite the two, another man and woman appeared. But these two didn't come to jump off the building. Indeed, it's more like going to see a play. Seeing the infatuated man and woman on the other side, he couldn't take a step. Duan Xinlian was a little impatient. If any of you really want to die, jump quickly. Feel relieved. There is no room for disability at this height. Quite a crisp little couple is a little wrong. This unlucky kid. That mouth probably didn't wipe away the cork. Jean Duan Xinlian's sister and brother made such a confluence. The female leak suddenly lost interest. So I persuaded my boyfriend to go back first today. Jump again tomorrow in a different place. But Duan Xinlian stared at him when he saw this. Qin Shang said that the time was almost up. The voice fell. I saw a male leak suddenly. Locked his girlfriend's hand tightly. With a numb look, he said, "Don't think about it. Don't leave me to die alone." With that, he pulled his girlfriend and jumped down. SMS practice followed. A few dodges caught up with the two, and rescued the female leak from the man's hands. But he did not try to interfere with the man's choice. Watched as the man fell into a puddle of flesh. For his destiny is sealed. Today he must die. At the moment of the man's death, suddenly, there was a ripple in the space. Manhwa true blood descends. Broken Star Chain watched it all calmly. Let the real blood drip on the corpse. The next moment the man came back to life as a mage. Dodge in front of his girlfriend. I want to give him a loving hug. Bang. A sudden iron fist, directly on the door of his face. This is the Haishan Liao commissioned Shinji Museum, a magic weapon arm for the practice of broken hearts. After a punch blasted the mage away, Duan Xinglian stepped under him, jumping up at the same time, pushed the cannon fodder-looking mage into the air. This was followed by a sunny Saturday. Directly take out the three-needle sword, with a burst of swords. This is a Nirvana master who has just taken shape, directly chopped into a pool of blood. The female broken star chain trotted all the way, caught the corpse falling from the air. This has been their very recent days. There is the fourth of the handling, the target of the Kilobatub imprint. Since the sister and brother were Panglai, after the method of immortality is saved, he left Sanchuan town, came to a new city life, and it is also under the arrangement of the sea and the mountain, with a whole new identity, joined the local group of gods. Haishan had promised them, just help it. Kill these targets with the cheeky tube mark. It will be given to the siblings about extremist groups, and the later intelligence of the Haoguang Patriarch. For this Panglai's supreme brother and sister, the two of them are still very respectful. Because of the Haoguang Patriarch, he has been mentioned in daily affairs. And you can see both. There is a friendship between life and death. I still remember that the Patriarch secretly wrote in the day, "It's a love that can't get along with yourself, and the weirdos who can find fun in it. But it's quite reliable." The sister and brother are also convinced of this. The first time I knew this Panglai Supreme, it was 6 years ago when I was wandering around with my sister. At that time, the senior sister wanted to make money and practice resources. Occasionally, I'll look for commissions to clean up Nirvana masters. It was a rare battle for power. Was photographed by passers-by and posted a short video, although it was taken off the shelves of the whole network in an instant. But there are still some high-ranking people who have noticed. This is a technique from the three-needle method. Soon after, teacher Wu Shan, who is a member of the side bank, I found my sister and brother, brought them to the city of Mikawa, into a new life. Another year later, as if it was meant to be, the siblings met Patriarch Haoguang. Follow up to Mikawa Hishishi. Later, I was fortunate to have today's Panglai Island, saved by the Lord's strongest immortal law. It's quite reliable. After waking up, the sister and brother only felt ashamed. He agreed to work for Haishan Liao for a period of time. It is assumed treatment expenses. In the 37th Great War of Cause and Effect, what kind of predicament did Gao Haoguang encounter? He needed to break his heart to change his fate. At this moment, in Panglai Immortal Island, the sea and the mountains were repairing for a moment in their hands. Immortality is called a flower. While talking about the sister and brother, the extremist group that wants to know, and the follow-up related careers of his ancestors, he will tell you all this. Not now, though. At least practice the FA in Duan Xing. The magic weapon in the right hand is ripe. And after truly grasping the notification of the natal god, and the sea and the mountains let the sisters and brothers fight against the mage, it can also be regarded as an experience to promote the growth of the two. Back then, Dao Haoguang was also his own responsibility. And so it is. Completed a couple of mages who were arranged by someone. It was only after the difficulty that the initial transformation was achieved. Broken star practice suddenly. Someone in the mouth of this Panglai Supreme. It should be the ancestor of the name. Mention Gao Haoguang. The sea and mountain beams seem to have opened the box. I talked to my sister and brother. A lot of the fun things they experienced together. Talking and talking. This Panglai. The Supreme's face seemed to have memories and loneliness. Suddenly, his style of painting changed. Remind the siblings. No, you can't. Underestimate the goals that were assigned to them. As for the reason, he did not elaborate. Just to admonish the two. These targets that were recently scheduled to be killed. If you escape one, it is possible to cause the appearance of Wanya immortal. The siblings were shocked. They are all aware of the seriousness of the situation. Duan Xinglian seemed to remember what kind of teacher-student difficulties were in. Could it be said? This is the prelude to the legendary battle of cause and effect. Haishin was surprised at first. This little guy actually knows the battle of cause and effect. I thought about it, and suddenly it happened. The little guy has Gao Haoguang's daily affairs on his body. The first half of his life is recorded there. See this paragraph. Xing Lian realized. This Penglai Supreme should have also seen the events of Haoguang. So I asked Patriarch Haoguang, "Did you mention that name to him?" But at the moment when his voice fell, the sea and mountains opened the moment of immortality in their hands, and made a promotion gesture towards the two. The siblings were a little puzzled. It's just a matter of mentioning Akiko's day can make this Penglai Supreme so cautious. But when he saw the sea and mountains, Chun Sheng warned, "At your current level, lad, if it leads to the punishment of karma green, even the cheapest kind will also be chopped, and there will be no slag left." Saturday was a shocking sunny, but he was busy covering Duan Xinglian's mouth. After a few moments of silence, Duan Xinglian asked Haishin, "Can you give them two separate tasks?" Because he knows that only in this way can he grow rapidly. He also wants to do it for those dead brothers. The sisters take revenge. I just wanted to get angry on Saturday for a while. The sergeant did not say anything more. And this request of Broken Starlink, it also fits the heart of the sea and the mountain. So he put the target near the siblings. All of them were sent over. These are the ones who will become teachers in a week, after the seeker has done everything. Haishin looked in a certain direction and was distracted. There was a muttering of the light in his mouth. The third person you were waiting for with the 3 stitches finally arrived at the battlefield. It's just a teenager called Xinlian. Can you really change your fate? The sea and the mountains have stood for a long time. Otherwise, there will be Baiwen behind him. Extraordinary session of the Supreme Council of the United Nations Legal Commission. Coming soon. The Supreme Agent has taken his seat. Whether or not an audit is required. Haishin sweated slightly and took out a piece of Fulu. With Fulu running, his primordial spirit came to a special space. This is the 27th Lord of Nirvana. Relevant for the conference site. This is a man who has survived for endless years. Legend has it that he witnessed the history of the supernatural world. As long as he is realistic, it means that there is a reversal. A major event has occurred in the world of supernatural powers. At this moment, in Penglai Island, with the movement of the sea and mountain birds, the primordial god who captive him came to a special space. This is the 27th Nirvana. The Lord of the Demonstrators is related to the meeting site. Those who can come here, they are all representatives of the great sect. There will also be a supreme Yuan god to observe in person. Seamounts rarely come here. So his appearance attracted a lot of people's attention. A man in a suit stepped forward to talk. Said to himself, "This is a battle of cause and effect. It is also the 38th time ever. I don't know what you think. This time, Kazuha. What is the probability of the poet's complete arrival?" Haishin Liang did not answer this person's words. Cha looked sideways. The man said he was quite scared of life. "Is it okay not to answer your words?" But the man didn't care. Continue to talk to yourself. The protagonist of the last battle of cause and effect. Or your buddy Demon Lord. Gao Haoguang, the 218th generation master of the three-needle method. Come to think of us, we also have the Supreme who died at his hands. I don't know if this person is still alive. The sea and the mountains are always calm. Faintly said that your excellency thinks the people of the past. Whether a movable type is available. But the man smiled. Speaking of the past, you and I may look like. The personalities are all slightly different. But there is no doubt that you and I in the past are not dead. That's why we exist now. It's proof that you and I are alive in the past. It is also the recognition of the existence of time. Time exists. The will, on the other hand, is not necessarily subject to time. This is true for you and me. The three-pronged method that requires constant care of the law of cause and effect. And Manhwa Shursen, even more so. Seamounts. Still put on that lazy look. The man arched his hand towards him. said in the Lower Nine Realms Gate, the new Supreme by Li Yuan. I've seen the Lord of Penglai. I don't know if I can enjoy my face and have a dinner offline. The sea and mountains are not enemies in their hearts. The Supreme of the Nine Realms, the strongest method today. That's still to give some face. But he said it all unceremoniously. Don't start with Taiji if you're afraid. The year came to 530 AD. On the eve of the opening of the 27th Causal War, Akiko and his big disciple will come together. Unexpectedly, this place has long been occupied by the Wujin Gate at that time. The Eye Sword will Akiko and the two of them break in without permission. Two old men hurriedly stepped forward to block the way. I need to ask for an explanation. These two people are the great gods in the martial arts sect today. Notice, the old man with the goat lake is named Alian, and the grumpy old man next to him is named Honkai. Zhang Mingzi Rao looked at the two in front of him with interest. The world knows all the supernatural powers. A large amount of Manhwa true blood will descend here in the near future. Can be the Five Swords Gate. Not only drove away all the masters who came here, he even mobilized the crowd to send two Supremes. Defend this place. Why, exactly? Let's say it. Jiang Tong also poked his head out from behind his master. Ride Cha Dao. Isn't there something fun going to show up? Seeing that the two do not fight, Jiang Tong is not difficult. One step out will teach these two old horsemen a lesson. Alian was a little weak when she saw this. Hurriedly said that they had no intention of fighting. I want to ask you two to wait for a moment. Take them to report to the alliance leader first. But Honkai didn't have such a good temper. He is also a great supernatural person. He didn't think he was going to be any weaker. It just so happened that he also wanted to see and see. That is known as the strongest magic weapon of the Three Truths. The power of the Three True Akiko Sword. But the same teachers and students laughed. It's up to you. I also want to see my master's natal magic weapon. It's just a smile and generous. What is this today? There are no more than 5 who are qualified to let the master draw a sword. Let's let the little sister weigh it. You're not good enough. Long Kai has a hot temper, but not reckless. On the contrary, he is well aware of the strength of Akiko. However, I heard that this immortal monarch is actually afraid of insects. And unfortunately, his natal magic power is insect repellent. In his yellow lake, there are hundreds of millions of unique pets. He wanted to see it. How should this first person in the supernatural realm deal with it? However, at the moment when it was about to shine a light on the poisonous insects, suddenly, he felt a chill envelop him. But it made Red happy. A feeling of extreme foreboding arose. It seems that as long as you dare to release a lone pet, what is about to happen is a catastrophe from which it will never be recovered. Honkai suddenly felt. I just spoke a little louder. Hurriedly said to Jiang Tong, girl, if you do it, I'm not going to fight back. However, what Honkai didn't know was, will Akiko's killing intent? It's not against him at all. Just in the middle of a few conversations, Akiko turned her gaze to the void in the distance. A moment later, as far as the eye can see, a burst of blinding light erupted. Everyone's eyes were instantly attracted. After seeing the figure in the light, Alian's eyes were irrepressible. But it is actually a witness of the past and the present. This legendary figure actually exists. You know why the divine power world is in the Ji. The strong rarely make a move. Because the battle between them will involve many heroes. It can even affect the return of heaven and earth to the sun. Thus the law of cause and effect is punished. With the reality of the ancient and modern witnesses. Alian recalls a legend that has been passed down since ancient times. Legendary. Only when there is a great catastrophe in the world of supernatural powers, this person will be alive. And since the beginning of the record, he already exists. Some say he is an extremely strong mage. It is also said, he's just a disciple who keeps being apprenticed. Inherited status. Some people even say that he cultivates the immortal divine cylinder. But most of the time he sleeps in the magic weapon of rest. But there is no doubt about it. As long as this person is realistic, it means that there is subversion. Great events happen in the supernatural world. There's also a foreshadowing here. The words in the hands of witnesses of ancient and modern times. It is the same type of writing used in the Japanese style as a kiko. Subsequently, Zhang Tong also took out a portrait from 2,000 years ago. The ancient and modern witnesses recorded on the painting. It's exactly the same as the person in front of you. Zhang Tong's eyes were full of curiosity. The clothes on this guy, is it worn for 2,000 years? Or is there an infinite number of sets that are exactly the same? What a strange person. Suddenly, Zhang Tong felt a burst of majestic Wyatt's rise behind him. Fierce glance back. But I saw that at this moment, Mingzi's eyes were cold, although just standing quietly in place. But Naigu comes from the invincibility of the ages. Oppression of people. It makes the souls of all feel standing. See the master like this. Zhang Tong's eyes showed thorn and excitement. He knew that the master was going to be serious. Zhang Mingzi and the ancient and modern witnesses looked at each other from afar. There was not the slightest word between them, but they can see each other even the next second. An astonishing energy erupted from Zhang Mingzi's feet. Then a sword hilt rose from the ground. The two have not yet played each other. Xianjun directly sent his natal magic weapon. 3 true Akiko sword. The sword chi that escaped directly broke through the formation set by the martial sword gate. Zhang Tongjian was even more excited. Even the exact same mockery appeared on his face. A monstrous sense of oppression hit. Blows away the witnesses who linger in the past and present. Guangyu beside him, facing the waste battle of this old friend. The witnesses, ancient and modern, closed the book in their hands. Helplessly, he said that he hadn't seen him for many years. It's not just stronger. It's even more arrogant. Let's have a fight. The battle between the two supreme men was silent. Among them, the danger is not visible to outsiders at all. Although only for a moment. But it touched the heavens. Even disrupted the rules of heaven and earth. The sun's position began to reverse. Time and space began to retract. With the end of this battle, time is back. Zhang Tong and Zhang Mingzi have just arrived. The moment when the soul is unified. Seeing that the way was blocked by the 5 realms gate. Step out of the same part. I want to teach these 2 old products a lesson. Hit the position. There was a boom in the sky. Endless thunder emerges from the void. Towards Xiaoming, whose combat power is on the lonely boat. With a blinding glare of thunder, a cluster of light burst forth. The power of destruction that emerges from it. As if to ban the people who are in this wave of cause and effect. There was silence at this moment. Even Zhang Tong didn't know why. The master just stood there. Can usher in the punishment of the law of cause and effect. As the thunder dissipated, Akiko stood there disappreciatively. Not very decent though. But in the law of cause and effect, it failed to hurt her throat. Zhang Tong shouted, rushing towards the master. But there was not the slightest trace of worry in the words. Satisfied and excited. 5. The 2 supremes of the sword gate were dumbfounded. This level of causal punishment. In other words, they would have abolished the customary law a long time ago. The mage of this dog thief. It's even more powerful than a great magic mage. Just thinking about it. Yuding sent Ming Zena's slightly flat voice to him. Dare to take out that tattered pot again. Don't blame this immortal June for not giving face to the Lord of the 5 realms. Deal with it as a mage on the spot. Honkai looked dazed. This dog thief came together with another word. And the other side will be the same as wantonly desecrating the jade body of this master. Muttered in his mouth. Did the master use some tricks to provoke cause and effect just now? Green prodigy. How is your jade body? Hurry up and let the apprentices be quiet. Filial piety Jiang Mingzi is under the rainbow fart of his disciple. It's a little fluttery. This is a low-level law of cause and effect. It's harmless to Bin Xianjun. It'll be fine in a while. But now, there won't be any more eyesores. Then he will. His eyes fell on the two old men who had left silently. Asked, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Alian smiled kindly. Hong Kai said resentfully, "Isn't this to make way for your old man?" Seeing this, the immortal monarch swelled more and more. Pointing at the two of them, he said, "But you were so snobbish just now. How can there be no shortage of this immortal monarch, staggered people?" After that, he raised his hand and grabbed Hong Kai fiercely. The next moment, this is in the whole world of supernatural powers. They can all be regarded as the highly respected Five Swords Gate Supreme. A clean body of clothing that has been removed. Only a red belly hole was left. Agaran endured the oddity, expressionless, drifting beside him. The rest of the disciples even whispered about the Tao Master. "It's not going to kill us." In the name of the general who drifted away. At this moment, there is a reminiscence in his eyes. When he was very young. I have already seen this witness, ancient and modern. Jiang Mingzi thought silently in his heart. This time, he was allowed to escape. The book wasn't grabbed either. Although it is enough to have a Kiko's day. This little boy in front of you. After 23 hours, it will turn into a zombie. After confirming that this person is the owner of Penglai Island. After the assigned target. Duan Xinglian followed him all the way. Although it was a foregone conclusion that he would become a mage. But the cause and time of his death. It's all uncertain. Duan Xinglian was curious. If only the boy had been saved before his death came. Will it lead to the punishment of the law of cause and effect? Of course, he will not act rashly. Before coming, senior sister also told him to be careful in 3. I want to peek at him when my sister is taking a bath. So cautious and careful. Dan Fan Mage. No matter how much he had no regrets in his life. Regardless of whether it has been practiced or not. It is impossible to say whether the mage is strong or weak. Although under modern means. Can be more effective, Jean. Don't be those who have the qualifications to seek the Dharma. But resources are limited today. Some of those with ordinary qualifications were simply abandoned. But Kazuha Shinshu didn't give up on them. Duan Xinlian still remembered what his senior sister told him. For a long time in the past, there has been a kind of illusion of the rule of law called the road of thought. Only Genshin impact can be entered out of the body. It is also a causal selection. Many later painted the living people of the practitioners. It was only after entering this place that he was discovered by Qianji. I don't know if this Silk Road still exists. The road to Ness was also mentioned many times in the exposure day. It seems that there are 3 true with them. Phelan has a lot to do with it. As he spoke, the boy walked into an alley. He looked in front of him and stopped. Duan Xinglian looked at the deposit. I saw a few small turtles at the end of the alley. 3 is doing the business of robbing the house. But the victim doesn't look like a weak person. He's just the heart. In the eyes of Duan Xinglian, such a person has the desire to exist. There is no need to help at all. Subsequently, he turned his gaze back to the little boy under the tree. I saw him at this moment. After fumbling in the bag for a while, took out a Zhongkue mask. Duan Xinglian was shocked by this kid's Zhong Air soul, the chivalrous line of ancient times. In this world, you will suffer a loss. So he decided to help the little boy call the police. And it seems that things are far from being as simple as he thinks. After the boy puts on the mask, 2 more electric rods were taken out of the bag. He shouted that as long as there was injustice on this earth, I'm not going to sit idly by. Let's talk about it. Then one arrow was triple lifted towards the 2 editors. Duan Xinglian pondered for a moment. It was decided to call the psychiatric hospital first. There are also those 2 editors who have the same idea. 3. And the victim. However, the end result. But it was beyond the discussion of everyone present. This lightning ghost face is not only a scumbag of combat power. And he's a real reckless man. Under some operation. Put 2 small turtles. 3. Along with the scalp that I have cushioned, I feel numb. Broken Starlink is helpless. In the end, it was decided to call an ambulance first. During the fainting of several people. Duan Xinglian has also been on the sidelines. He didn't try to help the little boy. because I am afraid of the punishment of the causal rate. I could only wait quietly for the boy to wake up. But in the end, what was waiting for was another group of little deflated. Seeing the crowd menacing, Duan Xinglian sighed. He said he had fewer ambulances. And the other side, the little boy who fell into a coma had a dream. In the dream he saw his boy, boasted about saving someone's life today. He's going to be a grandfather. The hero I want to see. That's when it happened. There was a bust. The sound of slapping pulled the boy back from his dream. However, the scene that caught his eye made him feel, I should still be dreaming. I saw a boy who was not a few years older than him. To put it mildly, a group of small, deflated three were solved. This scene, he only heard it in the martial arts stories that his grandfather said. The shock is overwhelming. The boy subconsciously called out to Grandpa. Duan Xinglian is called this evil. Is it serious? But the boy didn't care. A sliding shovel knelt in front of him. He also shouted, Master. The little boy thinks, this big brother. It must be heaven. The one who was sent to guide him to become a master. Duan Xinglian was speechless. No longer deal with this secondary 2 teenager. Step away. This scared good. No need to follow. He was directly entangled by this little guy. And at the same time on the other side, by Li Yuan, the supreme of the 9 Swords Gate. I was taking my disciples to enjoy a meal in a noodle restaurant. A pebble sitting beside it whispered the news released by the door master himself. There is a cadre in the 9 Swords Gate. I was stalked in Shanghai. And this stalker, it is the 221st generation master of the 3-needle method, Lu Qin, the new supreme of the 9 Swords Gate. It turned out to be a nirvana master who feeds on human life. At the moment, in a small noodle restaurant somewhere in Sanya, Bailey Yuan was hearing Xiao Shitzi talk. Recently in Shanghai, the 221st master of the 3-needle method was discovered. In winter, there was a flash of excitement in his eyes. Really? His previous death report had been falsified from the sidelines. Bai Liyuan was not surprised by this at all. What he cared about was the little junior brother of Saturday Qin. The Battle of Shangguan Shao in Sanchuan 5 years ago. It is God who participates. There are quite a few members. Can confirm the defeat of Shangguan Sales. It's because he's punished by the law of cause and effect. And the two who fought with him at the time. Saturday Love is a natal prodigy of the curse class. There is no such thing as cause and effect. So it's probably the little junior brother. Cited by some method. Here comes the law of cause and effect to help him destroy the enemy. It's even very likely that he has run out of self-esteem. Another comprehension with cause and effect. Related natal powers. Said this. Bailey Yuan can no longer hide the golden mangs in his eyes. These are more than 1,000 years. The natal supernatural powers of the law of cause and effect are becoming more and more rare. Except for Gao Haoguang. None of them can live to the awakening of supernatural powers. And this time it is still the successor of the 3-stitch method. It's weird. But anyway, on the eve of this battle of cause and effect, the time stage when the fate is unpredictable, that little junior brother's natal supernatural powers, it's priceless, is talking about 2 teams of young couples who come here to play, walk past the master and apprentice. But suddenly they felt it. Something seemed to be torn apart from the body. A few people have not yet reacted. Their vitality is sucked away. And at this time Bailey. It also reveals that he is hidden in the Supreme. Another identity under identity. A nirvana master who feeds on human life. Now, he was going to find this little junior disciple of the 3 truths method and let it comprehend the natal divine power of a troubled master. For example, himself. After that, Bailey Yuan jumped into the clouds with a small pebble on his back. Unexpectedly, they encountered their special plane from the 9 Realms Gate. So the 2 took a ride and went all the way. Finally came to this bustling magic capital. Bai Liyuan's eyes scanned the city under his feet. A moment later, he sensed the location of the 9 Realms Gate cadre. A divine red came to the west in an instant. Female cadre sword stab. Hurriedly got up to greet this new supreme. Without the slightest nonsense. Bailey Yuan Chun Sheng opened his mouth to ask about the location of Saturday's love. And at the moment when Bailey Yuan appeared, the Saturday love in the distance is also noticed. And at this moment, his eyes are full of harm. This man gave him the feeling that something was very wrong. And the other side, the female cadre peeked until Saturday before talking about it. The position of the love is under the signal tower behind him. Before he could finish his sentence, Bai Liyuan's figure began to touch. At the time of appearance, I have come to the signal tower that the female cadre said. However, he did not see Lu Qing himself here. Only the 2 drones he left here. Homemade is teased. Bai Liyuan smiled self-deprecatingly. The young man was alert. A and B may really be able to become a strong party. And the distance from here, 10 miles away on top of a tall building, Saturday love, looked solemnly at the picture transmitted by the drone. I don't know if it's a supernatural power or a technical shield. Drones can't catch it. The voices of both men and women are the same. And the woman next to him, who was the target of this time. The information shows that this person is a casual holiday. Its own strength is not weak. At the moment, it seems that the identity is fake. At least not on your own. But he does become a mage today. At first, Saturday's tracking was smooth. Can be after. He was in a car passing by his target. Inside the rearview mirror, I saw the woman's sneaking gaze. Saturday knew that she was not good at tracking. It's not surprising to be found. Oddly enough, subject learns that he is being followed. Actually pretended to be nothing. It's like a deliberate delay. This is a move. Let Saturday have an ominous premonition. To be on the safe side, he had to go and buy 2 nearby. Dead expensive drone. However, if you are scared, it can be regarded as a ruin and a disaster. This man appeared out of nowhere. And no matter what means are used to cover up, gone to the original face. But it is not difficult to see that this person is very special and dangerous. And the smell of danger is suffocating. This person is even at the pinnacle of this supernatural world. I'm afraid they're all extremely strange monsters. It is known as the 9 Swords Gate, which is the strongest thief barrel today. There is such a terrifying background. At that time, there were 200 of the great gods who were still alive. And his 9 Swords Gate monopolized 2 cities. On top of the tall buildings at the moment, Saturday looked at the 2 in his hand. Drones that have lost contact. Lost in thought. That man just now was definitely supernatural. Such an existence is not something he can provoke. This goal must be abandoned. Then he contacted Duan Xinglian. Asked if there is an anomaly in the target they are tracking. Duan Xinglian hesitated for a moment and then said that everything was normal. The reality, however, is very problematic. Because the little boy who had been clamoring to worship him as a teacher. I'm dying. I can't bear to look back. In fact, there is a way to save him. Help him become a true seeker. Maybe you can get rid of this dead not in another way. But if you do, it will also become more difficult for boys to be right after they are legalized. Meanwhile, the search for Saturday love was fruitless. Bai Li Yuan returned to the second daughter's side. Kindly said that people had already slipped away. But it's not over yet. After that, he was going to take his second daughter to Shanghai. It's the divine ancestor base. The female cadres of the 9 Swords Gate were puzzled. Why do you want to die? And why do people with the 3-needle method target him? And the Supreme seems to know something. He hesitated and forgot to glance at the man before he died. In the end, I didn't dare to ask. The criminal style of this 100-mile honor. It scared him. Until a year ago. This powerful person. Only then suddenly appeared at the 9 Realms Gate. Even the upper floors inside the door. No one knows what he does. In today's world, the cultivation of the FA is a faction, and tens of thousands of small doors come up. And it is called the Great Supernatural, who is the strongest existence. There are fewer than 200 people worldwide. And among these 200 people, They have 2% of the Nine Swords sect. It can be described as a gathering of strong people. The contemporary Nine Swords sect alliance leader is one of the best. It's hard to find an opponent in the world. But that's it. This character is facing the new Supreme. His face often has the color of an egg, and the most proud disciple of the alliance leader at that time. I was not convinced. Go and provoke the new Supreme. But it was ignored by Bailey Yuan as a grass and tree. Annoyed, he slapped the pebble. Bailey Yuan didn't say anything at that time. Just let his disciples retreat first. But wait until the pebble leaves. Bailey Yuan was in charge of the alliance leader's order. Take the flesh and blood of his disciples except for their heads. All to pole. He also uses magic to keep his brain awake. It wasn't until the 8th day that he really lost his breath. Available in the meantime. The master of the sect has never seen the meaning of this disciple. Acquiesce to everything Bailey Yuan did. And cadres know well. If it makes Bailey Supreme unhappy, what greets you is that life is better than death. So he was very cautious all the way. Be careful, however, at this moment. An old man walked into the carriage. Bailey Yuan hurriedly signaled to the disciple beside him. When he was bluntly rejected by Zayashizi, the female cadres were a little helpless. I just wanted to get up and give up my seat. Saw the old man staring at Bailey Yuan unrelentingly. The female cadres were worried. I thought that this old man would not pick a good day if he was looking for death. It's hard to die now. Bailey Yuan was also a little speechless for this old man. But after a little silence, I got up and gave way to my seat. Don't shout angrily in your mouth, okay? Just set an example for the unqualified pebble. Female cadres are a little skeptical about life. This Supreme's personality is really erratic. And the other side, Sergeant Broken Chain decides to help the little boy survive his death. Although the boy's qualifications are really not very good, all 103 jurisprudence offices were closed. It's extremely difficult to widen. But the good thing, just help them get through a few introductory jurisprudence. Causes it to be able to flow mana on its own. Laxative. But that can be more or less regarded as the attainment of the Dharmakaya. The little boy just has a whole body microcirculation. Some obstacles appeared. Once you have attained the Dharma body, you can be healed immediately. Do you know why it is said that the heavenly machine cannot be revealed? If because of someone's words, or a move, interferes with the established cause and effect that should have happened, then this person will face the punishment of the law of cause and effect. Somewhere in a factory at the moment. Breakable. The chain infuses its own mana into the little boy's meta. God. Find out what is most likely to be taught by the police. Then pull that part of the primordial spirit out of the body. Then use the law to impact these closed jurisprudence. This operation seems simple, but it's extremely draining. And, at this moment, part of the primordial spirit that was pulled out of the little boy, still desperately locking back. This state is for a broken heart. Regardless of mana, the consumption of physical and mental energy is huge. He had to be quick. Come to think of it, broken heart refining no longer hesitates. Unleashed his unfully awakened nature. Prodigy though now. I don't know what this thing is capable of, but as long as he's there. The method of breaking the mind may be completed ahead of schedule. It's like you can do without the process. Get straight to the results. There is the fruit of spellcasting first, and then there's the sound of spellcasting. Occasionally, of course, the opposite effect can occur. For example, self-cast is nullified. It's like he's never cast it, but there is still time for now. As long as you break your heart and practice, keep trying. Fail and then continue. There is a high probability that this impact will be accelerated. The process of opening the jurisprudence. Get it done in a short time. It can also make the little boy leave his body because of part of Genshin impact, caused by the loss of vitality, down to negligible. This is Duan Xinglian's natal prodigy, unsolved mystery. However, just when he was concentrating on studying for the little boy, a wisp of his natal supernatural power sparked around it. Wisps of causal green fluctuate in the next moment. That was broken by the Starlink. A 3-pin copper moon chain placed in a pocket. Suddenly, there was a burst of blinding light. The year came to 1911, right around the unsolved mystery star. A method of investigation that fluctuates in the law of cause and effect. Behind the high consumption of light, the green phantom that had disappeared for 5 years. Resurfaced. It's been 5 years. He ended. You once again sensed the breath of cause and effect. And at the same time, Gao Haoguang slept. Noticed the different desires of the same moon order in his hand. The 8 immortals didn't say, "Recently, I have to take my eldest disciple out to fight. Don't contact you for the time being." Just Fai Tsai did not explain. A green phantom behind him poked out his small hand. A light finger. In the same month, the order suddenly hung in the air. Gradually in the air. Conjure up the imprint of the 3 truths. Because the little green group has just recovered, not long after. He didn't dare to open the same month order without permission. It would not be good if the law of cause and effect was provoked again. Fortunately, this is the eve of the battle of cause and effect. This time, you can borrow Gao Haoguang's hand. See. And the third person who heard the approval of the same month. With the full opening of the same month, Broken Love and Gao Haoguang finally crossed 100 years. For the first time, the governor formally established the alliance. It's just that both of them are a little blind at the moment. Duan Xinglian was shocked if it was because of her sister Fanqing. This bucket of experience has just opened. And Gao Haoguang. It's a scrutiny. This finally appeared the third person. Although Duan Xinglian is in love. It's not the first time I've seen this how. The light ancestor is gone. But at this moment, he still seemed a little at a loss. So I hurriedly called my senior sister. After Saturday Qing answered the phone, he was also blindfolded. He also thought. Something went wrong on the little junior brother's side. I didn't want to break the chain of sex, but I said, "Come and join him to see Patriarch Haoguang." And a few people from the 1,000 Machine Pavilion who followed Gao Haoguang. I thought it was the same month that the Wanfa First Army opened. Ling hurriedly came to the mirror to prepare his luggage. That's it. A time span was carried out. Long river video calls. Of course they don't see anything. It's really not embarrassing. After that, Duan Xinglian took the lead in holding his fists. Executed a disciple to the Haoguang group. Duan Xinglian is in 2025. Gao Haoguang pondered slightly. He is now in the 3rd year of the Qing dynasty. According to the age of Xiao Tusin, it should be 1911. In other words, there is only 114 years between the two. The crowd behind him captured the important information in Gao Haoguang's words. The person who started the same month order right now is not Jiang Mingzi. The owner of the first opportunity was suddenly embarrassed and a little embarrassed. He had just been with the little guy opposite. Desperate luggage coming. But that's to be expected. Now that the third person has appeared, then the show is about to begin. On the other side, Gao Haoguang asked the little apprentice whether it was the same month order that he cast the spell on. There is still some uncertainty about this star love, although he has learned to cast the same moon order. But this time it was not used. But he had a deliberate suspicion in his mind. He just wanted to be before. The little green group opened the same month and said it. But suddenly, the familiar wisp of causal green fluctuated. The severed chain suddenly made him have a premonition. He couldn't say any more. If you say that the existence of that green group, he will die if he says. It is possible to know the details of what will happen in the future. So do you think you can start now? Try to change the future. At the moment, I am practicing in text messages and trying to say the little green group. The moment of existence. A wave of causal green fluctuated. The broken chain suddenly sent chills down his spine. He didn't know about it. What's going on with the sense of crisis in Kolayu? But he had a hunch. If you talk about the existence of that green group, he will die at the same time. At the other end of the same month, the little green ball poked its head out from one side and informed Broken Starlink about him. Before the broken star chain grew into a great supernatural person. In him can at least be hard. before carrying the law of cause and effect once. It is best to hide his existence from Gao Haoguang. The broken chain only felt afraid for a while. He didn't have the slightest doubt about the truth of what the little green group said. Consider after 3. He headed towards the Haoguang Patriarch. A promotion gesture was made. Gao Hao was clear. At this moment, he also had a general conjecture in his heart. What's the reason? Fruit Green's supernatural powers are influencing the same month order. And there's a secret in it. He can't or shouldn't understand it now. Otherwise, it will lead to the law of cause and effect. Then both. I talked about some things with a low risk factor. For example, the two are in different eras. But when Duan Xinglian talked about it, himself was not in his time. When I met Patriarch Haoguang, Gao Haoguang couldn't help but have opinions in his heart. Does that mean? He has less than 114 years left to live. Duan Xinglian hurriedly explained this. He had heard from his masters and brothers. Patriarch Haoguang only disappeared after the Great War. Maybe it's still alive. And while the master was still there, every time the Haoguang Patriarch is mentioned, it's all extraordinarily vibrant, warm. Only. For example, it can be used to keep people warm in the ice and snow. That was the happiest time for Xiaoxing Lian and senior sister. But now it can only become a memory. Reminiscing about the past, Duan Xinglian and Saturday Love were both satisfied and sad in their eyes. He wanted to plead with this powerful Haoguang Patriarch. Can you try to change all of this from the past? Gao Haoguang interviewed, if the causal rate does not allow. Duan Xinglian was silent. If the vast light at that time, the Patriarch really destroyed all the causes. So where did it come from? He seeks the fruit of his change today. At the end of the day, what has happened cannot be changed. The broken star Love, who figured out everything, seems to have it. Something low. But there seemed to be a hint of decisiveness in his eyes. Ask Patriarch Haoguang again. Can you stop yourself and eliminate the murderer of the copper exterminator? 200s. The seeds of their elimination were planted from the past. But Gao Haoguang said, when they are faced with the 3 true dharmas, when you choose one or the other, definitely regardless of the rules. He doesn't make choices. He wanted them all. Even if cause and effect say no, my heart follows my steps and follows the sky. Guess what? This may also be Gao Haoguang. In the future, it will become the infinite Tao method. The Lord's eagle. He probably did. But because he slaughtered too many sects, directly let the 3 truths of the future generations, targeted by the entire world of supernatural powers. This has led to today's decline. After all, it still failed to change the cause and effect. Then the two talked about the messenger of the great light. The first half of Gao Haoguang's life is recorded there. Naturally, there is also a record of the present in which Gao Haoguang lives, and where things will happen next. So Gao Haoguang made himself this small picture. Put what started to happen today. All hinted at him. He's going to start trying to change the future right now. Several people in the sea and mountains next to him saw that it was all I Ching. They all think that Hui Zai's move is a bit crazy. Only the master of the 1,000 machines was silent. I don't know what I'm thinking, but for Gao Haoguang, if you don't dare to do anything, I only see that the past and the future are decided. Just watch things go. Those who don't want to see the end. What difference does that man make between life and death? In this regard, the owner of the 1,000 machine management agreed. The 3-needle method took hundreds of years to build. 3-pin copper reading column. Isn't it just to change the world? Is that an invincible fate? It's better to be appointed than to be a domestic animal. Just do what you need to do. And meow ching ching on the side. At this moment, it is rare to take out the master. Sister's gesture. Hui Tsai was a little weak-hearted. I just wanted to say something. But Meow gently took a flatbread to block the soil. For everything Aguang wants to do, senior sister will support him unconditionally. It's just a little distressing. Why will Akiko's 3 truths? Mingzi's sword only showed the hilt. Because he put. The blade of the sword remained 2,000 years ago for the 11th valor. The battle and gave it that time. Kazuha who can't be defeated by any means. Shurxian is a fatal blow. The year came to 1911. Gao Haoguang is decorated. Decided to cooperate with his own apprentice grandson after 100 years. Try to change the future from now on. And let Duan Xinglian according to what is written in the Koko Japanese style. To give him a hint. The two decided to give it a try. Only one word is spoken in a sentence. Gao Haoguang didn't need to understand the meaning. Since it is incomprehensible, then there should be no risk of causality. But after that, Gao Haoguang will experience these things firsthand. Those words will wake him up. Pay special attention to things related to those words. And make a choice. When the two use the same moon order again, the personal experience of the past is a thing of the past. By that time they were communicating. Maybe it's because of the hint of broken love. Gao Haoguang has made a choice to change the future. Of course, it is more likely that he made the wrong choice. The future has not changed in the slightest. But regardless of the outcome, both can learn from the experience through the co-reading order. Improving practices, step by step, to the land of the autonomous destiny. The owner of the 1,000-base pavilion on the side. I agree with Gao Haoguang's idea. Also told everyone a little-known secret. The time they are in right now. It is the eve of the battle of cause and effect. That is, the stage before and after the first advent of the Manhwa poem. There will be a slight slack in the causality rate during this time. Naturally, punishment is not as sensitive as it used to be. So the form can be a little bolder. Duan Xinglian listened. Also hurriedly said. Right now they're that. The times are also in this period. And the period before and after the battle of cause and effect. It is also known as a definite time. After understanding everything, Duan Xinglian began to reminisce about the daylight consumption indoors. The patriarch of the record. Some of the things that will happen next. And at this time, the small green group in the air took a leisurely look. At this moment, the mana of the same month order has been exhausted. Ultimately, Duan Xinglian only had time to spread a tomb word 3 truths. In the same month, the order will be renewed, turned into a quaint tortoise shell. At the same time as Gao Haoguang's face was blindfolded. Dongting Lake, not far from him. A group of Dharma seekers from the 9 Realms Gate. A place is being excavated here. A tomb that is 3,000 years old. And in a small grove not far from here. The upper echelons of the 9 Realms Gate was with another prisoner at the time. Fakiangman asked the immortals to confront each other. The 9 Realms Gate was silent and went to their borders to dig wantonly. It's treated like this. It was difficult for everyone to accept the immortal society. Even though, at this moment, the Ask Immortal Club is at the bottom of the top 21 gates. They will never be allowed to do so. Do whatever you want here. However, what responded to them was a deep killing intent. The woman's name is Heiju. It was one of the Supremes sent by the 9 Swords sect for this trip. He didn't bother to respond to the school that asked the Immortal Society. Directly cast the natal supernatural power. I saw that the black bamboo was lightly lifted by Zhu Chun. The next moment on his lips, out of thin air, he appeared behind the people of the Immortal Society. Everyone just wanted to deal with it with supernatural powers. I only heard Heiju softly spit out a stupid word from his mouth. The voice fell. The people who asked the virtuous people really seemed to have lost their brains. One by one, they all looked stupid. Then Heiju swept the white-haired man beside him. This person is also one of the Supremes of the 9 Swords sect. It's called Encounter Shadow. Just now, the Black Lord wanted to kill him, but was stopped by the Encounter Shadow, because in his opinion, a strong person doesn't have to cross a wall, and the weak are not necessarily weak. Be a man and leave one. See you in the future. Heiju let out a well-behaved sigh. Then he asked, what is the origin of the tomb excavated this time? Xiang Yuan's expression was solemn. Word by word replied, because it was buried here. It is the bolt of the door of the first man of Manhwa. And what does the so-called deadbolt mean? The master of the 9 Realms Gate did not talk to him in detail. Just say that there is a presence in this tomb. It can make them prosper in the 9 realms. It can make the world of supernatural powers last forever. Go and record the first appearance of this person. It was the 11th battle of cause and effect 3,000 years ago. That's one of the few times it has affected the whole world. A war on an unprecedented scale. By the master of the Three Truths Dharma at that time. The Lord of Life and Death Mountains and Rivers leads the prison law. The whole plate showdown with Wanya Shursian. The nirvana that is affected is one side. The war was fought for 4. Even the climate and topography of the world. All of them have changed dramatically as a result. Countless tribal dynasties were affected and perished. The war to the later stages. Because I can't find a way to destroy Kazuha Shursian. The more the living are beaten, the fewer they are. Nirvana is more and more fighting. Just when the human side was about to reach a desperate situation. A huge blade that grew from a different place. I can't give it. Defeated Manhwa Shursian with a fatal blow. Outside sight that crosses cause and effect. How indelible it is. The 3-needle method is an invincible ancestor for 2 generations. Nothing reasonable can ban it. When Xiang Yuan said, the cause of the 11th battle of cause and effect is extinguished. It's because of the blade that doesn't come out of the booth. Gave Kazuha Shursian a fatal blow. The black bamboo immortal world is evilly stained. Put it this way. Kazuha Shursian had already been killed at that time. Then we are now guarding against the Wanya Shursian. What's it again? Encounters lead the way. It's still the same ancient well without waves. Whispered about the follow-up. At the moment when Wanya Shursian was killed. In an ancient battlefield near there. Something unknown has descended. The same way of advent as Manhwa Shinshu. No one knows what it is. But it's definitely about causality. And beside that thing, standing stood a suicide man. I was waiting for this moment as if I had expected it. Before the suicide was dying, he touched what came from within. Then they disappeared abruptly, as if it had never been on this plane. But the time of that moment was witnessed by everyone present, including witnesses of the past and present. After that, the great psychic beings felt it again. The Dharma of the King of Nirvana. It still exists somewhere in this world. He is destined to become a seeker of Nirvana. That fate is in the hands of you. The feeling in the hands of others remains. Destiny remains the same. While speaking, Xiang Yuan and Heizhu were too. Walked to the quilt. Time has buried 3,000 years of burial chambers. In front of the mirror, as far as the eye of the two can see, there is a huge pair of Light Valley light fruits. The surroundings are covered with all kinds of gold and silver funerary goods. And the owner of the tomb lies quietly inside. It was the name mentioned to Yuing. Disappeared suicides. The year 2025 AD is back. After a few tosses, Bailey Yuan is a few people. Finally came to the Shanghai God Group base. Can be close to the door. Bailey Yuan stopped. He explained to the pebble beside him, I'm going to go in and find something later, but wait for the people inside to come out first. Subsequently, he glanced sideways at the female cadre behind him again, and let it go after 1 minute. Go to the city God Group to report the crime. The female cadres hurriedly swore an oath. During his spare time, Zayadouzi chatted with him about family life. When the female cadre talked about returning to Shanghai, in fact, it was when he was arranged by his family to go on a blind date. It immediately aroused Zayadouzi's gossip heart. However, when it comes to results, the female cadre's face showed a constipated look. After thinking about it, I still went to report. The case was just between a few people talking. On the top of a tall building where they were. A crane driver, accidentally, bumped into a pile of steel on the side of the rooftop. The steel rolled off in an instant, smashed it at the female cadre downstairs who was about to report the crime. Little Beans noticed the anomaly at the first time. Hurry up and give a reminder. But come on. The person in front of him is also a very strong seeker. Should be enough to cope. And the cadres looked up. According to the word, there was a bad breath. I just wanted to cast a spell to resist. But there was a sudden tingling pain in my brain. The pain of this Merlin oil. Let the mana in his body flow violently and consistently. Bailey Yuan on the side seemed to have expected it. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold arc. A countdown to death whispering from the mouth. I just answered. The female cadre's body was suddenly torn apart. And before that, Li Yuan stretched out his hand to block Xiaoduzi's eyes. It seems that he does not want to let his disciples see such a bloody shadow. And the countdown continues. Then the sky began to twist. Immediately after that, a drop of red mini true blood descended. And at the moment when true blood appeared, it was a shrill siren from within the gods. At this point, the countdown of the 100 miles is finally over. On the other hand, the female barrier. Now, he has become a very large mage. Meanwhile, several divine reds flew out from within the god group, towards the French-style female cadres attacked. Fish waves erupted from the battle between the two sides. Ling Bailey Yuan looked sideways slightly. It is worthy of the Shanghai-style god group. A Tier A combatant with natal powers. There were at least 5 of them. True blood in the middle of the night. It's a kind of unacceptable. The causality of time and space constraints is the same. At this moment, Shanghai is the periphery of the god group. 5 Class A combatants stationed here. All sorted. Hurry up and take this one. A mage who appears in a downtown area. And the other side. Somewhere in a corner where no one noticed. Li Yuan raised his hand and moved towards the ground. The next moment, his fingertips were clear from his body. Then it turned into a monster that screamed. The object broke open after touching the ground. All the way through. I came to the basement of the Shanghai God Group base, and took the opportunity to take control of a passing staff member. Head to the depths of the base. After everything is done, Bailey Yuan took Xiaoduzi and turned away. He came this time. This is the purpose of the Gods Group, and it has been achieved. The female barmaid of the 9 Swords Gate before. The reason why it will be targeted by the descendants of the 3 truths. Most likely, it's because he will be legalized today. So Bailey Yuan. As long as you can find it. Recently, the list of Dharma seekers who will be mage-oriented. Then search around these seekers. You should be able to find it. The disciple of the 3 truths who has the magical power of the law of cause and effect. After listening to the master's explanation, Little Bean pretended to be old-fashioned and sighed. Because life in pursuit of power is so boring. There is this time. It's better to accompany Xiaoduzi to ride a roller coaster. But Bailey Yuan said with a smile. His life has been a roller coaster. Can't jump off the rails. But at least he has to choose to move forward or backward.